I don't know why it is that every single time I do one of these like full face tutorials, I always wear a white shirt. And this time, usually I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good at keeping it completely pristine. Not today. So I just put on this shirt and it's already going in the wash. Awesome, because I love doing laundry. Hello everyone, I'm here today to share with you guys some of my absolute favorite hacks that I use pretty much every single time that I do my makeup. So I sat down, I was thinking about it, I was like, what hacks do I use routinely? And by hacks I mean, you know, using a product in not necessarily the way that it's made to be used for, you know what I mean? So not just like makeup tips, but actual like hacks to different ways to use your makeup to make it perform better. Some of them you may have heard before, perhaps all of them you have heard before, but these are all ones that work really well for me. I'm gonna share with you the products that I use that I find work the best for myself and kind of walk you through the whole process on how I got myself all made up today. I'm also gonna include a list at the end of hacks that I have tried or seen that I think are terrible and should not be performed by anyone. I hope you guys like this video. If you do, if you find it helpful at all, please give this video a thumbs up, share it with friends and family, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on new videos every Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. And without further ado, let's get into this. All right, so let's start with the eyes, and probably my favorite one. Many of you who have watched my videos before know that I love putting some clear tape on the outside of my eyes if I want a very strong sort of a winged look, or just, you know, to save for the fact that I'm incredibly messy when I apply eyeshadow. Just make sure if you are using this hack to get rid of any of the stickiness, like excessive stickiness on the back of your hand or just anywhere, just to make sure that you're not like really ripping at your skin when you're taking off the tape after. It'll make it a lot easier, I promise. And another reason I really like it is it makes a winged liner look a lot easier as well. So what I'll do is I'll either use a liquid liner or I'll use a dark eyeshadow in some way, and I'll apply it along the tape edge and kind of smoke it into the rest of the eye look. It's much more wearable, it's much more forgiving, and it's a lot easier than doing a really cut winged look. Also, my lids are kind of a little bit uneven, which a lot of people deal with as well. And one is more hooded than the other, and one has a larger lid than the other, so this just makes it easier to make sure that everything is even. Hack number 2 is using concealer as a primer. I know a lot of you probably already do this. This is something that I enjoy doing. I do love myself a good eyeshadow primer, but this is a good one to have if you don't have one in front of you or you kind of run out of yours. The one that I really enjoy using is the Tarte Shape Tape for this purpose. I love that it's very, very creamy. You only need the tiniest amount and it'll completely cover everything. It's very light. It's really gonna make sure that the eyeshadow colors and shades that you choose really pop on your eyes. The only thing I will say, although I do this for primer as well, is to just set that concealer down with a neutral skin tone shade eyeshadow, and that's just gonna make sure that when you go in with any of those darker colors, those crease colors, whatever, it's not gonna like bunch up in certain areas where some of the concealer may still be wet or anything like that. This is just gonna create a really smooth base. Tip number 3 is one that I don't use too often, and usually not when I'm at home because I have sort of my whole collection in front of me, but this is a good one if you are on the go, if you need just the smallest amount of products to take with you, or if you're at the office or at school and you're trying to turn your like day look to night. What I will do is I will take like a thin eyeliner brush and I will dip it into my mascara and use that as a black liner. Just make sure that you're choosing a mascara that is super, super black, otherwise it kind of goes gray or it just is a little bit streaky. So the one that I was using today that I really liked, where is it? Too many products out in front of me. I use the huge Extreme Lash Mascara by Stila. I find this is a good, very, very black mascara. And I find that's a good quick fix if you don't have any gel liner or liquid liner available. The next hack has to do with sort of eliminating raccoon eyes, and it just runs down your face, and by the end of the day you're like, wow, looks like I just watched The Notebook for the 100th time. Pro tip, I wouldn't recommend wearing any makeup at all if you're watching The Notebook. Oh my gosh, it's such a good movie. What you can do to add a lot of longevity to that liner is to set it with a same colored eyeshadow. Just make sure if you're doing this that you are using the tiniest amount of powder because you don't want to get any in your eyes. So what I did is I really lightly tapped my brush into the powder. The one that I use is by Makeup Geek. It's the shade Corrupt. Don't brush it on because again, you don't want to get any powder into your eyes. Then you just keep going, you stamp it along the waterline, and it's just gonna make sure that it looks good all day. It's not gonna run down your face. You could play up and use different colors and just to get different dimensions and different looks if you wanted. So sometimes I'll do like a black liner and I'll use like a blue eyeshadow. It just gives a little bit of dimension, something a little bit unique and different without being too crazy over the top. And that really, really works for me. Next up is trick that I learned for cleaning your brushes off between uses. Use one of those like little like hair donuts, you know, these like things that you like put in your hair and you get like a big fabulous ballerina bun. Anyway, if you don't use yours anymore, or you can pick one up from the dollar store, you can use that as a great way to kind of wipe off any excess powder that you have on your brush so you have a cleaner brush. This is not a replacement for cleaning your brushes, people. This is something that needs to get done. By the way, mental note, I need to clean my brushes badly. But in the meantime, to get rid of any excess shadow that you have while you're completing a makeup look, that is a great hack. Okay, now onto the face, and I have learned a couple of different tricks and some products that work really well for me because I was dealing with some creasing, smile lines, just the makeup like glomming up in like certain areas of my face, and these hacks just make all the difference on how my makeup looks from beginning to end. First step is to apply a face oil. The oil I've been using lately is by Physicians Formula. This is their Bright Booster Oil Elixir. It's just very lightweight. It sinks into the skin. It's not greasy in any way. So what I'll do is I'll take a pump, I will warm it up in my hands, and I'll just gently pat it all over my skin, concentrating a little bit under the eyes and just letting it set and melt into the skin. And it's really going to make a huge difference on how your concealer sets and wears throughout the day. So for example, I adore using the Tarte Shape Tape. I think this is a fantastic concealer, but by the end of the day, it tends to get a little bit on the dry, creasy side if I don't do this step. It just makes the biggest difference for me, so I highly recommend checking out that trick if you are dealing with any creasing under the eyes. The next hack is a really good one if you deal with smile lines or any forehead line, and this hack has to do with using a silicone primer to kind of fill in those little areas very particularly. Probably my favorite one is by Estee Lauder. It's the Smoother Universal Perfecting Primer, and what I'll do is I'll put a little blob on my hand. I will use a very thin, I think this is actually like an eyebrow brush or something, and it's for like the highlight under the brows, but I'll use that one and I'll just kind of stamp it into any smile lines or anything like that and just let it sit and settle into the skin, and then any excess I'll kind of pat over larger pores or something like that. The other one that I use is by Maybelline. It's their Baby Skin Instant Pore Eraser. Anything that's silicone based that you have that you love should work, but probably if I had to pick, this would be my number one. Then you go in with your usual foundation routine, and because I have that primer on my face and the oils and everything, I try and kind of pat everything in versus like smearing it all in. So I'll use a beauty blender, or I think this one's by L'Oreal. This is their infallible blender sponge thing. And today I used a combination of the CoverGirl Olay Simply Ageless Anti-Aging Foundation Primer mixed in with one of my favorite foundations, if I can find it somewhere. Where did it go? Here it is, the Cover FX Custom Cover Drops. These are fantastic. The shade I have is N25, which is a little bit light for me right now with my level of self-tanner on. So I'm also mixed in a bit of the Giorgio Armani Fluid Sheer, which is a nice bronzy shade. But again, you don't have to go through that. That's a big concoction. As much as I can, avoid really glomming on the product, like around the smile lines, around the eyes, things like that, where I know it can get a little bit creasy if I'm not careful. So that makes a huge difference as well. And then right before I apply my powder, one thing that I do, this isn't a hack, it's just a general makeup tip. I will take my damn beauty sponge and I will just press it over any areas where I would get a little bit on the creasier side, so around the eyes, around the mouth, things like that, just so that when I'm setting everything, I'm not setting in the creases, you know? Another tip that isn't so much like a hack, but since we're on the train of makeup tips anyway, what I like to do when I'm applying my powder is I like using one of those little like velour puff things. I got this one from Sephora, but I know they have them at Walmart as well, and I just find that I'm using less powder overall, and when I do use the powder, I'm just kind of pressing it into the skin so it eliminates a lot of that like powdery look to the skin, and it just makes everything sink in. It sets better. I love using these things. Highly recommend them. The powder that I'm using today is actually a relatively new favorite of mine, I want to say, but it's one that I can't talk about yet because it hasn't technically launched, though I can tell you it is called Wowder. I'm partnering with the brand here leading up to the big reveal and the launch in August, so it'll be at the beginning of August, so stay tuned for that because I'm kind of in love. I have one more hack that's really good for eliminating any creasing or cakiness or anything like that, but first I want to kind of go into the rest of my like powdery makeup because there's no point in setting all the powder and then putting more powder on top. Kind of defeats the purpose. So I've applied blush already, and for the bronzer bronzer. Today I'm using the Hourglass Radiant Bronze Light, and the way that I like to apply it if I'm doing like a bit of a light contour, I guess this is kind of a hack, though not really. I like to use a big kabuki brush. This one is by IT Cosmetics. It's their Heavenly Luxe Airbrush Powder and Bronzer Brush, and the reason I like it is I dip the side of the brush into the bronzer, and I use that to create that nice soft line. I just find it to be a lot easier, a lot more goof-proof than using a much smaller, more precise brush. If you also struggle with the whole contour situation, highly recommend finding one of these bad boys. This next hack I'm going to be using for my brows, but you could use it for any sort of gel product that you have, so like a gel liner, gel brow product, whatever you have. But if you've noticed that these products have dried up for you at all, and of course like make sure that they haven't expired or like 10 years past expiry, because then you usually get a new one. A trick that I learned that I use is I take a little blob of the product that has been dried out, and then I take a little bit of the same face oil that I used before, the Physicians Formula one, take the tiniest drop, also put it onto the, I use probably like the top of the lid the most often, but you could use any kind of clean surface that you have, and then just gently mix in a little bit of that oil at a time to make the product a little more creamy, and it just makes it spreadable, easy to use, and then it's again a usable product for you, and it's something that I really enjoy using. Especially for these like Anastasia Beverly Hills dip brow pomades, I find these dry up a lot quicker than any of my other products, so this helps a lot. All right, back to what I was talking about before. If you are dealing with any cakiness or you've put too much powder on your face and you want to eliminate it, one thing that I do is I take a damp blending sponge, and then I will either use just as is, or I will spray it with a setting spray. So today I use the NYX Dewy Finish setting spray, but whatever you have on hand, and I'll spray it a couple times onto the sponge, and then I will pat it very gently over my face. It'll just help sink the excess product into your face so that your skin looks more like skin and not so much like foundation. I also enjoy using it under the eyes to eliminate any creasing that may have happened in the process of doing your makeup, and just setting that perfectly smooth application in place and keeping it locked there all day. Another hack I recommend if you are dealing with any sort of excessive powderiness, cakiness, or your skin just looks overly dry in any way, is to again take this face oil. I'm telling you, this is so many purposes, people. And then I'll just dip my foundation brush into the like tiniest amount, like barely any product on my hand. I will dip a little bit onto my foundation brush and sort of like brush it over any areas where I'm looking a little bit powdery maybe, or cakey. I know a lot of you guys are looking at me like, because that sounds a little counterintuitive, but I actually learned it from a makeup artist, and she does that a lot. I've used it myself. I haven't noticed that my makeup has smudged or smeared or broken up on my skin at all. Like, you're using a very small amount, and it makes all the difference in just making your skin look like skin. So those are all of my favorite hacks that I use on a regular basis when I'm applying my makeup, but I just want to go over a couple of ones that I have either tried myself or I've seen on the interwebs that I don't so much recommend. One hack that I've tried and failed at is taking a liner, applying it to the one side of your eyelash curler, and then clamping it on as a way of applying liner like super quick time. And I'm gonna go on record to say that no, it does not work that way. I've tried it several different ways, different products, no. Just no. Another hack that I've seen is people putting drops into mascara if it is dried up. There are some great ones by like Essence that are like $1, $50, $2 that are fantastic. And if your mascara has dried up, it is probably way past its prime and it's time to invest in a new one. You don't want to put any of that like bacteria and stuff that close to your eye if your mascara has dried up. It's probably for a good reason. And I think actually the drops companies have actually like now had to say like, don't put this in mascara, people. It's not a good idea. So I would go with that, and I wouldn't recommend it. Another one that I've tried that I have not had any success with is for like a super quick time self-tanning, bronzing kind of a product, is to take any crushed up bronzer that you may have, like let's say you dropped it, if you're clumsy like myself, or you have some excess lying around, you just scrape a little bit into your moisturizer and then you apply it to your skin. Not only is it kind of streaky, it's gonna rub off on everything, it's just, I don't get the amount of glow that I would expect from doing that. And you need to break up so much of your bronzer to do that. I just think you'd get a lot better success and probably waste a lot less money by buying a product that is suited for that purpose. And the last one I really wanted to like, and I didn't so much, was using Kool-Aid as a great way of creating a nice stain on your lips. it just did not work well for me, which I was surprised with. I thought this would totally work, but it was just very sticky. It didn't attach to my lips like evenly all over. It was very overly sweet. It was very crumbly. I had like sugariness all over. Like, it was just a big disaster. I did not so much enjoy it. And again, I have some great like $1.50 lip products that I would much prefer using than that. And that's everything for this video. Give it a thumbs up if you found it helpful. Let me know in the comments down below what your favorite hack is makeup wise that you use on the regular. I would love to hear from you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys all in my next video. Love you girls. Mwah.